Hello, everybody. Can you see me and hear the audio? I just want to make sure that we're live so that you can hear the show. I'm talking to the people in the chat. You guys can read what they're writing in the chat as well during the show.
Yep, I can.
Yeah. Oh, you can see it now? Okay, good. All right. So we are doing part 2 of the sort of a round table discussion of Nanette Krentel. It's not her maiden name's Watson, though, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Right. So just like Gina, I've actually known Gina for 4 years or so regarding the McStay case, amazingly. And this murder that has now been ruled happened on July 14th, or possibly the night before, depending on if that really was her in the McDonald's footage. She was murdered in her home. She was shot in, I guess, behind the right ear. The bullet lodged down in her lower left part of her neck, I guess. And she was then burned in a fire, which was probably set to cover up the entire crime. And her husband at the time, or I guess even, at the time, was actually the fire chief, who would be really versed at setting a fire of such magnitude that actually incinerated the entire house, where all you really see is the cement on the ground. All right, and basically there's a few different characters in the case that may have been involved as well. There's really nobody's been arrested at this point, and it's just an unsolved murder with some likely suspects hanging around. So how was that for just a quick synopsis, just sort of the general information? Maybe there's something you can add.
Perfect.
That was it?
Except I believe the round that killed Nanette was not below her ear, it was above her ear and to the back.
Okay, so behind her right ear, but above, right? Right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, that's just so weird. Like, there's another case that I work on that has another crazy gunshot angle of an apparent suicide. Doesn't make any sense at all. Like, why would anybody hold a gun way back over behind their head like that? That's actually almost hard to do. And then pull the trigger too, you know? It's kind of a weird musculature angle as well. Let's see. Well, yeah, I don't know if you guys can see the screen right now, but here's what I did. I took one of the crime scene photos of the drone. Let me make this full screen. Get my face off, you know. All right. So here it is. This is one of the drone shots, and what I did was I did an overlay on Google Earth, so you can actually see the destruction of the home, but it also is almost a perfect house layout. I mean, you could literally take this image here in a 3D modeling program and put in the walls. You see all the different doors. Like right there's probably a door there. Here's probably one. You know, a door there. And I did an overlay on Google Earth. Now I'll turn it on and off, and you can kind of see that it's really pretty accurate. You know, you can't get it 100% just because it's an image, and Google Earth is sometimes at a little bit of an angle, and so could the drone shot here. So if I turn off I'll blink it on and off so you can see what I'm talking about here. See, now look right here at this driveway where it bends in. I'm gonna blink it on and off, and you can see how that matches really well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you see that? And then also let me get a more recent. Okay, So this is when there was a house there, I believe. Let me see, maybe not though. Yeah, so that's when there was a house. Now notice how I've got the driveway lined up there as well, the walkway in this. And it's interesting because you can actually fly right in and it maintains its clarity. I mean, look at that. Like you can kind of go around at different angles. It would have been great if it could be 3D, but now on the line with us right now are Lori, that was on, a good friend of, were you guys best friends, basically?
Yeah, basically, yes.
Yeah, Lori.
I mean, I know she had a lot of good friends out there. I hate to take the role, but
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so Lori and then Gina Watson. And Lori is you don't have to do your last name if you don't want, but you're the good friend. And then Kim is the sister of Nanette. And then Nanette's dad is here, Dan. And he will be joining in and filling in the facts like he just did a minute ago where the gunshot went in. And he probably has information that all of us don't have. Now let me get some pins put in on here. We tried to do this the other day. Can you tell me where she was found on this picture? Was she right in this area? Does that look right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I put a pin
Yep.
right here, right? That's where she was?
Yeah.
Okay. Now where was the gun found compared to that pin?
Which one?
Well, remember there was one found that they thought maybe she used to shoot herself, right? There was a pistol on the ground that they weren't able to... That's what they were saying, right? There was one on the ground near her, right? A pistol? Or is this not accurate?
I think all we know is it was near, whatever they mean by near.
Okay, because on one of the show that I just watched, it actually put a little mark, but those shows just kind of sometimes, they'll just put a mark out there, and it isn't really accurate. They just sort of want you to know that there was a gun found, a pistol apparently near where she was found, right? Is that a true statement?
Yeah, you can talk. Randy is here as well.
Yeah.
He talked to Steve a lot.
Yeah. Listen, don't be shy here. Okay, this is your show, you guys. I mean, don't just start jumping in. You don't need to hear whispering. Hey, say that. Just jump in. All right. All right, because we can all hear the whisperings. And then people will start a conspiracy over the whispers. Hey, what was he saying? Did you hear that, everybody? Okay, so go ahead. What do you want to say about? She was found there. I guess she was on her back, right? And her backside wasn't burnt as much. They didn't find any soot in her lungs, apparently. And there was some other thing that you mentioned where it might mean that she charring, right? Where maybe she was already. We were going to look into how long would somebody have to be passed away before the charring phenomenon took place. I don't even know what that is, but I remember you mentioned that to me, Gina. Hello?
I'm not sure about that.
Oh, okay. Well, Gina mentioned something about that to me on in messaging, but what about you, Dan? Am I leaving anything out here?
No, I can't think of anything offhand. We lost the screen, so I can't see the picture.
Oh, really? Oh. Is it happening to everybody out there?
No, I still
we
have
got
it.
it.
Oh, okay. Wow. I was maybe nervous there for a minute. All right. So what do you think we need to be discussing on this show? I know that we were talking about somebody's going to be calling in, one of the people that called in last night that had more information, right? And what was that person's name? Okay.
There's Tom and Russell.
All right. Well, Russell had some interesting information, but I don't want to say what he was going to say and let him call in and say it. So why don't you guys start talking talk about what you think may have happened and different information that leads you to believe that.
Well, after speaking with, we had an investigator and a forensic pathologist go down. Dad and Randy took them down to Louisiana, and they did what actually turned out to be a third autopsy, because the St. Tammany coroner had done 2 themselves. They had also sent her skull to the Faces lab at LSU. So by the time our pathologist got down there, all that had been done. And they saw a little bit of, there was a little bit of clothing that was protected underneath her, and had asked me kind of a weird question, which I guess I'm hopefully not going to upset anyone, but had asked if she normally wore a bra, you know, if she was going to go out during the day. And Wendy had said yes, she would, and so that's why they were thinking she had been killed Thursday night, because she was not wearing one.
That's interesting. I wonder, the thing is if it is her on tape at the McDonald's, then she wasn't killed, right? But it sounds like the McDonald's tape it's so blurry. I don't understand also why the police aren't going to release that. That was something we talked about a couple days ago. Seems really odd. Well, it's a vital clue, but yes, that's her. Well, then, if it is her, then how come it's a vital clue? I mean, because it's just really, there she is, and we're going to... I think the reality of it is they can't tell if it's her, but they want to claim it's her, and they don't ever want to have to show that they really can't prove it. That's my gist. That's what I get from that. What do you think?
That's my fear, too. From the way that Amy and Wendy described it, that they can't tell it's her.
Right. But I was trying to figure out when she
I
called...
think they...
Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
I think they pushed so much of identifying her through that video early on that they don't want to release that to the public, because everybody will see that you can't identify anyone in it.
Yeah, exactly. Who was just speaking right there?
Well,
That's Randy.
Oh, Randy. Okay, I was thinking you didn't sound like Dan. Wait, I was like, whoa, what happened? So are you sitting with one of these, the 4 that have already called in?
I'm with Kim.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. I was...
Randy, this is Dan. Randy was with me on every single trip down there to do everything from court hearings to whatever. So he's well versed in what our experiences were.
Right. Well, maybe you could fill us more in on that kind of information. Like, what have you guys been doing for the last almost year and a half now to get justice?
Well, when what happened is we had a friend who had a connection to the Attorney General down in Louisiana, and he had asked that person to look into the case because it wasn't going anywhere. And the information we received back was that it was a weirdest case they'd seen, and that it was likely the sheriff would rule it a suicide. That's when we got an attorney and went for a court order to have an autopsy done. Well, we made a trip down there, Randy and I, the first time to what we were trying to do, we went to court to get the court order. Well, Steve had not signed the paperwork, nor had Preston, the coroner, so we had to go back, and the judge scheduled another date. So Randy and I drove back down there again, and that time they did have the paperwork and everything ready. So I mean, it was just one of those things where it was very slow, not cooperative. When we ended up finally going down for the autopsy itself, when we got down there, Randy and I dropped off Doug and Dr. Bennett at the coroner's office, and they had no cooperation. There were 2 armed deputies from the sheriff's department. There were 2 armed people from the fire marshal's office and 2 armed people from the coroner's office standing. And Dr. Bennett was told he couldn't touch anything, he couldn't take pictures, they could not take notes.
Wow.
When Randy and I got the information they weren't going to even allow the autopsy, we were scrambling. We headed towards the courthouse to get a copy of the order. We called the attorney and so forth. And it was a mad scramble, but it didn't take very long for Dr. Bennett to determine it was homicide. And that's when we found out that, there actually had been 2 other autopsies. Prior to having the autopsy, we were told by our attorney that the attorney representing the coroner was going to use Dr. Bennett's finding to be able to basically go around the sheriff's opinion. And that without it, he wasn't comfortable enough to give an opinion of homicide. So we were listening to the attorney and so forth. There's a lot of inside politics that were going on at the time. So I don't know, we had all those things. It was just like one thing after another we had to contend with. So, Randy, is there anything in there that I'm missing?
I think you pretty much covered it. It did a complete 180 pretty much from what we were informed ahead of time, that you've got our cooperation, anything you need. Your doctor will have open access to everything at our facility, and when they showed up, it just did a 180. They weren't allowed to do hardly anything. And the way they described it was the coroner was very nervous and uneasy with them doing anything with the sheriff's department overlooking or looking over their shoulder. And he looked at them a lot of times before he would answer questions, like he was getting their approval to answer or not answer anything.
Wow. I've seen that before.
And Dr. Bennett's sidekick from up here is a homicide investigator. And he had worked with Dr. Bennett for many years, and he went down with Randy and I to join Dr. Bennett. He was actually going to do the photographing of the remains and so forth, but they would not permit him to do that.
So how did this work? The original coroner's report, was there ever an original one that said something else, and then you guys went and got your own opinion, and then they go explain that whole process again?
No, the original coroner's report said homicide. But before we got that far, so we had gone for what I considered an extended period of time with no information coming out of the coroner, but we had heard that through that source that the sheriff was going to rule suicide. And that's when we got an attorney, just in the event that that was true, so that we could get the autopsy done. And the day following the autopsy is the first time the coroner came out with a report, and he said it was homicide. And the sheriff came out the same day and said he didn't necessarily agree.
Yeah. Like he's an expert in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the sheriff saying he didn't agree after 3 pathologists already called it homicide, and the coroner, who is not a pathologist, but he is an MD, agreed with the 3 pathologists. So you have 4 medical doctors stating it's homicide, but the sheriff coming back saying he doesn't agree with it.
All right. Let me ask you guys something. See, this is something that I thought of, and then I also heard it mentioned on I can't remember which one of the different documentaries, but so let's say she's in the home and she starts a fire and then runs over to another room and shoots herself, and then she's not breathing anymore. Wouldn't that part right there, let's say she wouldn't have soot in her lungs, right? I mean, I'm just
that is not
I don't
possible.
know.
It's not possible?
That's not possible the way the fire happened, because there was a lot of accelerant used in this fire.
I
and
see.
The way she was shot, the body would have continued breathing for another minute or 2. And also, there was so much accelerant, she could not light the fire and get back to where she was found before the fire would get there.
Okay, well, there you go. See, that's what I needed an answer for. Because that's something, when you visualize it, you think, well, gosh, okay, the fire starts, and then you go to another room, shoot yourself, and then you're not alive, you're not breathing, so you wouldn't have soot. But if you're saying it was all right, was it started? Let me take a look at this. Can you see my map here? Google Earth?
Yeah.
Where did the fire start here in this picture?
Okay, that's a tough question, because the better question when you're talking about any type of fire or arson is, where was the most intensity of the fire? You can start the fire almost anywhere, and with a gas trail, take it to a larger fuel source, and they're going to call what you would think is the start of the fire, they're going to call the origin of the fire, or the most intense part, and that's not necessarily where it started.
Oh, right. Like
the
you
most
could just
intense part.
Right, you could just put like a little trail of fuel, light it, and it runs into a different room, and boom, it explodes into massive flames. Right, okay. Right.
Exactly. But the most intense part of the fire is on the end of the house where the bedroom, bathroom, and 2 closets were, which is the bathroom that you have the Nanette pin on right now.
Okay, now
that end of the house was the most
burned.
intense part of the fire.
Yeah, like this here, I don't know if that's just the coloring there, but it looks really...
That is the bedroom, and the reason you have a different discoloring is you have a different type of flooring.
Okay.
If you look in the bathroom and in the main part of the house, you see a bunch of little squares. That would be where the ceramic tile was.
Yeah.
The bedroom didn't have a ceramic tile, and what you see there is just a darker or more soot that attracted to the concrete slab, and then the lighter rectangle in that room is where the bed was located. And the bed actually, because of more layers, protected that part of the concrete a little more.
Okay, and it looks like the whole house was tile, other than a few of the rooms, but like where you would walk in the common, in some of the bathrooms and everything, right? Because you have tile here.
The way this house is, the way this house is laid out, the room Nanette was in was a bathroom. As we're looking at the screen, that's the top side of the screen. The 2 little rooms to the left were closets, from the way Steve told me. The room to the right was the master bedroom. And then the whole center of the house is the kitchen, dining, and living room and entryway area. And then towards the bottom of your screen, you've got a hallway that goes into a bathroom, and on each side of it you have a bedroom. And then to the far left is the garage.
Oh, okay, and then looks like this is one of those counters in the kitchen right there, right? You can almost still
right there where your cursor.
Yeah.
Yep, that is a peninsula or island in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And you see the difference there, because that extra material would have protected that floor a little longer from the heat.
Yep. Wow, that's interesting. Wow, we're getting...
Well, Randy is with the volunteer fire department, so he's had training.
Yeah, I was going to say, we just got a 101 fire, what do we call it? But forensic fire exam of a building. That was pretty interesting. So you got tile here.
I wouldn't go that far into depth, but I've got almost 3 decades of experience and been through many classes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sure that was like not even 101. That was like something lesser. 1. How about that? Okay. So what else do you guys? What else do you got about the house? Maybe you could, if you can think of anything else that. It looks like it all burnt, and then they moved everything aside, and now you can see the layout of the ground. Was that
the photo you have here?
Yeah. The
photo you have here would have been probably, I'm guessing, 3 to 4 weeks after the incident.
Right.
Because the entire slab had been cleaned off. When we were there, it didn't look anything like this. This was after they claimed to have went through and sifted through all the debris. And they very well may have done that. I don't know if they did or didn't, because the entire slab is cleared off like it should have been.
Yeah. Look, well, there's other images where it's full of, like, all this stuff here was in here, it seemed like. Like they just kind of moved everything off to the side, a lot of this stuff.
A lot of that was in there, but a lot of the debris you see right around the perimeter of the house would have probably been brick from the house, plaster, maybe stuff on the walls that would have fell out as it burned. Some of that they would have brought out, but if they did the investigation correctly, they should not have just pushed or scooped any of that out, which does surprise me a little, because I know when we look at the left side of the screen, I see a water heater and a few other things that were in the house, and I would have thought they would have removed them further than just to carry them to the perimeter of the house and set them down.
Yeah, let me see. I think I've got some like images like this, right? So how were the bricks broken down to put out the fire? Or did they just kind of blow up and break down?
When the house would have burnt, when we arrived, the house had collapsed from fire, and they had cleared all the tin off, and that would have been the majority of the debris in their way to walk through. But as far as the brick and the walls, the brick isn't going to. A lot of people ask if brick will explode. Normally, no, it won't. But it has no. A single layer brick has no support structure. It has to rely on the house to hold it up. So as the wood walls burn and it loses the support, the bricks are just going to fall out.
Yeah, you can see the bricks all on the side on this image right there.
Yeah.
Just collapse.
Yep.
And this is probably a little bit even, like this is in between the time of what it originally looked like and that Google Earth image that I have where it's nice and cleaned out, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, this is an in-between. It is cleaned out a lot here compared to when we were there. But yeah, the brick you see around the outside, that's just natural how it's going to fall out as the house burns. Think of like the old game Jenga. If you just stack all the blocks individually in one row up, if nothing's holding them, they're just going to fall over.
Okay. Let's see. 2 more people called in while we were chatting. Who were those that called in?
Hi, this is Gina Watson, Nanette's cousin. I had to hop off earlier, so I'm just rejoining you all.
Okay, and then there's a 5th that called in. They're being quiet. They won't admit it. Yeah.
Well, jump in when you're ready.
I'm here.
Yeah,
I'd rather not give my name.
Okay.
Okay.
But I know the situation pretty well, and I know Nanette very well, and I knew Steve very well. I worked with him for years. I knew the house when it was being built. I knew a lot about it. It was a very well built house. very well framed. Steve was a house builder. He built houses before he was with the fire department. So he was very good at building houses, and the house was well built, and that house burned nearly completely. It would be like what you would find after a house trailer fire. An old house trailer would burn. The only thing that would stand in or be left would be the tin, the refrigerator, water heater, and those type of items that would hold the roof up. Everything else in between burned. That was combustible.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems really like an absolutely complete burn. I mean, what are the odds of that too, right? Like, you've got this fire chief that knows how to, would be, like I said earlier, like, would know exactly how to do that. And then, I mean, there's a fire, and then somebody has a bullet in their head, and then there's a fire that, didn't just kind of burn the house, it incinerated everything, right? I mean, the odds of that are...
And for the age of that house and the way it would have been built and the response time they had for that fire, under normal circumstances, that house would have never been fully engulfed. It would have never been to the ground. But you got an outside factor is somebody had put a lot of accelerant in that place. So it went up quick, it burned hot, and that right there is why it was on the ground. That is not how, if you had a normal accidental fire start in a residence, that's not how it would have burned.
Do you think there was...
You're exactly right.
Go ahead.
No, you were exactly right. That's not normal for a house. In all my years and everything that I know about house fires, and I volunteered as a fireman for many, many years before I was an employee and professional fireman, and you never seen houses burn like that typically of an accidental fire. Even with a true arson fire, there was more left of them than that because of quick response and things. The remoteness of that house, because it's sitting so far off the road, there's no other people right there close, even though his cousin's house is not far away. It would be hard for somebody to notice it and to call in and report a house fire because you're not going to notice it as much because it's so remote there. If you Google Earth it and pull up and look around it, it's really remote.
Yeah. It's just way off of any kind of a main road.
Typically on house fires, you would have somebody call in because a neighbor or someone sees the smoke, and they eventually seen the smoke. The cousin's daughter or whatever called in and said they seen the smoke then, but that fire had been burning for a long time, and it had a long time lead. And Randy was exactly right when he was saying that how the fire and all spread and burned very rapidly. It almost like it was a chimney effect, but somebody had ventilated it, and everything was that ready, primed, and ready to burn. Steve taught arson investigation classes and at work, and he was a training officer, so he taught classes on arson and investigation, all those type things. So it wouldn't be not to say that he did it, but it's not outside. He would know how to make a fire that would burn and continue to burn and would burn almost a complete burn. That's not outside of a seasoned fireman's capabilities at all.
And I would agree with him 100% on that, because I don't know how they do things in Louisiana, but I know when we go for training, if you're doing any type of arson, and then that spreads out to drug training and all types of stuff, but they keep track of what your training is in case you're ever involved in something that maybe relates back very close to something you're involved in, just for simple investigative purposes as, did he learn this in one of his trainings and do it just like this? Now, I've asked numerous times if Steve, what he has for arson certificates or investigation certificates or any of that, and they won't give us any answers to that. They keep saying they can't find any, but I find that really shocking. But yes,
Right.
I agree that whoever, because we all know the house was burnt intentionally. It wasn't an accident. And whoever did it, they knew what they were doing. You don't accidentally get that type of a burn just by dumb luck. There were too many steps that got to be taken to make it burn that way.
Right. Exactly. He would have the classes through LSU. Arson 1, Investigator 1, Inspector Investigator would cover the arson part of it, far as investigating that. Investigator 1, and I think he possibly had Investigator 2, and that was tests and things that would have come through LSU. Also, the college courses that we were taking during our fire science degree time, they touched on that stuff too. So it wouldn't be without there's training there without a doubt, and we always had classes of different things that were being taught there too. But there would be a record at LSU Fireman's Academy of classes and certifications.
I had heard, and I thought Steve told me at one time, but I don't recall, so I don't want to say it was him for sure, but I thought it was. But do you know, has he attended any training out at Emmitsburg?
Yes, I know at some point in time, yes.
I had heard he had some training. I couldn't tell you
the National Fire Academy. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that's Correct. Where I meant when I said Emmitsburg. Yeah.
Yes, and that's yes, and he did attend classes out there. I know that. Him and a couple of other employees had went up there different times. But it may have been leadership or classes like that, something to those effect. I don't know what classes were taken.
Yeah, because they do the broad spectrum of anything from beginning to end. So, yeah, I was just curious if he attended out there.
Yes, I know he did at some point in time. So, but, yeah, you hit nail on the head. It was a very calculated and thought to process. And a house fire such as that house was built 2x6 stud walls, so it was well built and well insulated. And with house fires that are well insulated, with double pane windows and all the modern building construction, things like that, those fires can hold. That house can hold a lot of fire and a lot of heat before it would ever vent. And it had everything there. It obviously had a fresh supply of oxygen. Everything was there to burn, and you just don't get a complete burn like that. It just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, the other thing I noticed, and we don't have a lot of experience up here in the north with it. All we have is, no actual experience, but we have book training or class training. That metal roof is also going to hold in a lot of heat down there, isn't it? Compared to an asphalt shingled roof up here?
Yes, but the rafters and things like that will burn clear off of it.
Yes, but that metal roof can almost act like an oven, isn't it?
Yes, it could, I guess. But I would say more so that it would. You definitely got a ridge there that would ventilate. And I don't remember anything far as roof vents, and I think everything vented through the roof line of the house, if I remember correctly. And there was nothing, like power vents or anything like that.
Yeah, the pictures I seen, there were no roof vents in the house, so I assumed it was just vented through all the, like a ridge cap vent.
Yeah, it doesn't look.
Yes, ridge vent and soffit.
It doesn't look like there's a. Unless this is right there, that's blurry, but maybe just one, if anything at all. But it doesn't look like it. I'd have to see. Well, we could get one of the drone shots out, right? I think let's see, the ones he took. Yeah, hold on. I can put it on the screen. Okay, so this kind of looks like there might be, like, right, I don't know if these are vents or, like a miniature, but not really, though.
No,
right?
what you're looking at there, I would assume to be a water heater vent for, like, a gas water heater.
Okay.
Or a oven or stove vent for a hood range. But those are not large enough to be roof vents.
Okay, yeah. Doesn't look like it. Nothing. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. They usually kind of have like a pipe and then a big round thing on the top, right? Or something like that. Yeah. And then,
you'd have what they call a power vent, a roof ventilator, or whirly birds, something of that sort. That would possibly be on the roof. But I didn't notice anything with it. That's the way I saw it too. That it was but with that being said, if they say you had an opening attic stair or something like that, you would had plenty of ventilation or windows open. You'd had to have something there that would let that air and smoke travel and let that fire burn and act like a chimney and act like it was set. It wasn't some Joe Blow off the street that set it not without direction.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
I agree with that
for sure.
Completely.
Yeah, and that's I think that's the first thing that even pops out to novice people. You're like, normally when you see a house burn, there's structures up and things, and it burns out. But this was, like I said before, just absolutely incinerated the whole house, where whoever did it tried to hide. The thing is they must have known that they'd find evidence of a bullet or something like that at some point, but maybe they just wanted to hide any other evidence, like, forensic information. Although
that would make sense.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd be curious of, because as you look at the picture you have up now, you see his camper there to the left. But when we were on the scene, the fire happened on Friday. When we were there Monday morning, the camper was burned up also. But I believe somebody was using that camper because the jacks were down for the four corners. The awning was out. That isn't stuff you do when you store the camper normally, especially the awning, because the slightest wind will damage those.
So I'm really curious. Right here? Where was the camper in that other shot? Was it over here?
The camper was where you see that red Jeep now.
Okay. Stay right there.
And the other thing is, when you can see in this photo where he keeps the camper normally by another trailer over behind the shed, the other thing I would be curious of is, why is the camper next to the house? Now, I didn't get time to... Steve was there, and I didn't have time to look around, and I wasn't going to dig through and be accused of messing up their investigation, but I would have been really curious to find out if I could find anything showing that camper was plugged into the house, because I think it was obviously being used, and in turn, with some of the ups and downs they had been having shortly before this incident, I just got a gut feeling that he was sleeping in the trailer and not allowed in the house.
That makes sense. Is this the camper way over here? It looks bigger than the thing that we see that was there. Is this what you're talking about right there?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's the same camper that was there or not, because I don't know how old this photo is with
The Google
the
Earth.
camper, and I don't know when they
This is
when they
February.
acquired the camper that was in the site.
Yeah, this shot right here is February 8th, 2017. This Google Earth shot.
Okay.
So just 5 months before, I guess.
Yep. But as you see with that camper sitting there now, the awning's not out, and we can't see it close enough to see the jack stands. But
Yeah.
I would expect a camper to be sitting more like that now when it's used, not with the awning out and stuff in the camper.
And I guess one of the biggest issues in this case is was she really seen? Is it her that's at McDonald's, right? Because if you can show that that's not her, then it opens the door for a lot of things. Because you got that text message exchange with Lori, or they're messaging back and forth, and it just sort of ended abruptly for just out of nowhere, right? And then that could be something happened to her. But then if she shows up at McDonald's, then it means that nothing happened to her. So we really gotta get that information.
Yeah, but there's some information we do have, like she had no food content in her stomach. So if she went to McDonald's, did
Right.
they go there just to buy it and throw it out the window on the way home? Or
Yeah,
why isn't
See, that's interesting.
why
though.
didn't she consume it?
Yeah, that's a good
And the
point.
other thing is, if the coroner would give the medical records to the pathologist that Dan had go down there, we could find out a lot more, because he would like to know about her medical records, because she had half of a pill in her stomach, which would make sense if it was a pill she took at night. There'd be no food in her stomach, and if she was killed at night, that would all help tie that in.
Yeah,
But it all
definitely.
goes back to, for whatever reason, we're told one thing by the sheriff and the coroner, but they do a whole different thing when the pathologist wants the information or when we show up down there.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You're 100% right.
All of that stuff would prove it, wouldn't it? I mean, if she didn't have any food in her stomach, I mean, I guess, it's possible she didn't eat that, but that pill angle is a really good angle.
I wanted to pass by that McDonald's and take pictures of it. I know personally I've been through that drive-through there with work and things like that. And every McDonald's I've ever been through, when you pass through, at the pay window, when you're at the line, or at the menu board, those type things, at the pay window, there's a camera right there, and it's facing at the vehicle where you can see in the vehicle. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
And for their protection, that's a common thing. Every one of them around here has that, and I wouldn't understand, or couldn't for the life of me, why they didn't have footage that would show her face. That would be right there. It would been, and it's for their protection, because somebody comes through, robs the McDonald's or something like that, they would have everything. And I'm sure they would even have license plate numbers and things like that of the vehicle. There would be 100% identification of that vehicle. The next thing would be cell phone records. Knowing Nan, she wouldn't have left the house without her cell phone. And her cell phone would have pinged, something like that. Those type things would be what I would question.
I believe that, this is Dan, I believe the sheriff told us that the cell phone, her cell phone did have the pings, that was her car, and probably I wouldn't dispute either one of those claims. The only thing is, the people that have seen that video say you couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman driving, and that there was an animal in the car of some sort, which they couldn't tell if it was a cat or a dog. When the sheriff first told us, now this would have been last year, sometime following the fire, that they had shown the video to Steve, it was because they wanted him to identify the watch on the person that was driving the vehicle's wrist. And now we're told by the people that have seen the video, you can't tell if they're wearing anything. So, I mean, it was another one of those basically lies that the sheriff has told us.
Is anybody on this call? Has any of you seen that video? Any of you?
No.
No, I don't believe anyone on this call has seen it. The sheriff's department, we asked them because we are so many miles north. I mean, it's Google, it's a 17-and-a-half-hour drive to get down there. Kim made a request to them through email if, since they're working with an FBI agent down there, if we could view it at our local FBI office with some of the guys Kim works with. And they came back and said yes, but now it's been a month and we haven't heard a thing from them, and they're not telling us when or where. So it seems like the sheriff is stalling on that one again.
God.
But if it was really urgent, I would go down and watch the video and then come back and tell you, because I trust Chad and Wendy that they said no, he couldn't tell. You couldn't tell who the driver was. Somebody that had dark hair and wore sunglasses.
And the sheriff on that last conference call with him, his people or him, I don't recall which one, said they determined it was her because the vehicle looks like hers, although they didn't get a plate, and her debit card was used, and there's someone that could meet her description in the camera. Now, those are three big ifs, because if she died the evening before, which I would not be at all surprised to find out if we find out that's true, whoever did it could have easily got the debit card. They have access to her vehicle. And as far as a person in the car, that's not a difficult one either if you can't make out who it is, or if it's even a man or a woman, and they'd have had access to her cell phone. So all of that could easily be explained, along with they're saying they cleared Steve because he has an alibi, but he has enough training to have easily do a time set delay on the fire and know how to have it set up so when it does light, you get full destruction like he wanted, or like somebody would want.
You hit the nail on the head there with that one again. A time device is a very, very simple thing. You can YouTube and even find it, but you're taught that basic things in school. When you go through rookie school, in investigation classes and things like that, they teach you the basics of, and that's the things that you look for an arson fire. All those things that kind of throw up red flags. Somebody obviously that knew the house, I would say, there was mention about the cameras. There was mention of the home security camera system the other night on there. The home security system, the DVR, from what I understood, I may be wrong, somebody can correct me if I was wrong, but what I was told by some of the other guys and such, that the DVR, the hard drive, and everything there was burnt, and the accelerant was found there in that particular part. So obviously somebody knew the house pretty well to find the DVR and to go to that extreme to make sure that it was destroyed. But I was told some images were taken and received off of it and recovered off of it, but I never did hear what was recovered off of it or anything.
What we heard the same thing about the accelerant was all over the area the DVR was in. We never heard about any images they received off it, but even if they would have been able to read it, I'd have been real curious to see when it stopped, or if it by chance wasn't running at the time of the fire, because they used to have, from my understanding, Steve installed the camera and security system at their house and knew the security system very well inside and out. And I'd be really curious to see if it was even working at the time. And the other thing is, they used to have it go up to the cloud, and all of a sudden they were no longer doing that, from my understanding. And I'd be curious as to why, because we haven't got an answer to that either, because it's something that just would really pique my interest. Is that is the most secure way to have your security system, so it's saved somewhere besides the location it's protecting. Why would you end that? So
exactly. You're exactly right, and I heard the same things, and it was at one time was backed up to the cloud, and so off-site storage of every image of it, and then if it was live or not. Steve worked. His dad had a security system, one of the first ones around, and it was later bought up, from what I remember. His dad installed and had monitoring security systems all over in this area, from what I remember and understand. And so he was very, very capable of it, knew how they worked inside and out. He was even all the way down to surveillance of other things and phone tapping and all those type things. Those were done, and I know that he done them. So there's more to the picture here.
yeah, and another thing, and I've worked with law enforcement on scenes and everything for almost 3 decades, so I love law enforcement, but I really question what the sheriff is having his guys do, because he also said they cleared Steve's brother because he was at home, and they could see that because of the surveillance cameras in Steve's mom's house. And I said, well, how do you know he was there at that time? And this was on the conference call, so there's other people here on the phone that were on this call with us and heard him say this, but their answer was, well, we could see the time and date on the VCR or DVD player in the background. And I literally asked them, that's really how you're going to authenticate something on its timestamp, because there's a clock in the background? And I asked if they had the FBI look at it, and they said, well, no, we had already made that determination. And when I questioned it, then they were going to send it to the FBI, they said, and I don't know if they have yet. But I question it, because what kind of law enforcement agency relies on a clock in the background of an image to determine that somebody did not commit a crime? Anybody could have changed the time on that clock.
So they didn't. There wasn't a time on the surveillance footage itself?
They told us they went by it was either VCR or DVD in the background of the image.
Wow, that is weird. I'll admit that. You know, if it had a timestamp on it that matched the clock, then I'd give it some, some validity. Like, let's say,
if you. But and then my other question was, if it had been tampered with the times, because Steve knows security systems. Like someone just said, his dad did that. Steve knew these systems inside and out. It'd be nothing for him to go in and alter a date stamp or a time stamp, just like I think I said to the sheriff the same thing. If he can do that, you don't think he can change a time on a clock?
Yeah.
So I just question that, because, and then there was a few times the sheriff has either lied to us or his people have lied to us in front of him, and he won't give us answers to that, and he won't clarify why he allowed them to do so. So I have real reservations to the St. Tammany Sheriff's Department, or at least its upper leadership under Randy Smith.
Yeah.
You have every right to question it. I've had several relatives that worked for the sheriff's office and St. Tammany Parish, and there was things that were done that weren't right. I can tell you firsthand. I know that, and because they told me. And there's things that was handled internally and covered up and those type things. That's and I don't know of quote unquote murder as such, but you make campaign contributions and things like that, and it's amazing how some things and how some people don't get prosecuted and dealt with. So.
Yep. And,
I was going to say something.
Just like on this case.
Hold on. That sheriff, when he cleared Stephen, he looked so nervous in that little press conference. Like he didn't really want to say that. Right? Did you guys ever see that? We
seen it because we were
sitting
Dan
there.
and I were stood down there because that was the morning. I believe the morning we were coming home is when he said that, or the day before we were coming home, because that's when we were down there and they did the third autopsy. They call it a third autopsy, but that's when we had an investigator down there and a forensic pathologist down there. Yeah, when they got to look at things, and that's what they want to call a third autopsy.
How did they clear him? By the way, like what cleared him?
I'm sorry, you broke up. How did they clear who?
Yeah, Stephen. How did he get cleared? Like, what did they come up with?
They're saying he got cleared because he passed the polygraph.
Oh,
but there's polygraphs are very subject to interpretation depending on who gives it, how they give it. And there's a big reason why they're not allowed in the courtroom, because depending on who gives it and how they give it, they can vary so much.
Don't you find it interesting that they gave him a polygraph, even though they'd already said, his employees said he was at work, right? So then why would you need to do a polygraph? That means that's bogus that they saw him at work, because you wouldn't even have had him do a polygraph. He would have had an ironclad alibi, right?
For the time he did. He volunteered for the polygraph, we're told. But the other thing about him being at work, we've had many of his employees, no longer employees, he got terminated, but he retired. But we've had people that work at FD12 tell us he normally isn't there on Fridays. It was odd for him to be there, and then even more odd for him to make sure he had people around him throughout the entire day and go to lunch with people, almost like he had to lock in his whole day, his whereabouts.
Wow.
Very convenient. That the next thing is, there was a lot of it about motive and things like that was mentioned the other night, and about what was money, what was going on. Did Nan find out? That was because I know a few more things there. But if Nan found out and was going to, say, divorce him, he stood to lose a large amount of money.
I don't know their financial situation, but in any marriage of that length, he would have stand to lose 50% of everything they both had. So, yeah, that would be a large sum of money when you look at the value of the house, the value of the land, the vehicles, and everything else. You're talking a huge amount of money in most people's eyes, including my own.
The land, the property there, was actually inheritance, from what I remember and understand. From the surveys and everything else, and everything that was inheritance, that was family land. So I don't think she would be entitled to anything with that. Maybe the mortgage on the house and 1 acre of land with the house, that type of thing may have been, community property, something like that. But the rest of the property wouldn't. But back to that again, you take the amount as retirement and things like that, she would be entitled to half of it.
Yep, And
Well,
I don't know about Louisiana because we found have some strange laws down there. But I know up north here, if he inherited the land, which he did after they got married, then she would be entitled to half of that because he did not have it prior to them getting married.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and she had been talking divorce with him.
There was other land that he inherited, and they had to move from it because some industry was coming in and wanted it. And so they lived on a different piece of property altogether. They had to sell that and then move. Yes.
Yes. Right there off Krentel Road. I know it well. And his house trailer that he had there, and I think his aunt or something lived right there by him also. And Pavestone is the corporation that bought that piece of property from him. And the road was cut in, and I know it pretty well. I know that piece of property out there pretty well from all the work that was done out there.
How much did they own of this going out this way? Like way out, like right here maybe? Something? I don't know if you can see that, but
I personally don't know. I don't know if anyone else here knows how big a parcel they own there, but
I think wasn't it 100 acres?
That's what I heard, Dan, that it was 100 acres.
Oh, okay.
I think it's
That's
105.
a good chunk of land.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, I believe it was 105, if I remember correctly. I don't know why that number comes to mind. That's been 15 to 18 years ago, at least. At least 15 years ago. That those roads were, if you look at that piece of property, a road or trail that goes right straight in front of his house when that was cut in there and everything, and going all the way to the back there. But yes, it's over 100 acres, or at least 100 acres there, if I can remember correctly.
So Stephen was actually seeing somebody at, like, right during the time Nanette died, right? Or he claims that, we talked about it, and we were gonna get back together, which, whatever. Here's something I want to remember before I forget. When I was watching the People magazine, I saw that he said, he made sure that he said, and we had plans together for the future. It's like, see, that's something you want to say when you're trying to make sure that there's an alibi, like a sort of there would be no reason for me to do anything. We had plans for the future, even though you were with this other woman, right? Okay.
Right.
Yes, but Nan had also told one or more of her friends that she suspected, and this was not something she was okay with. And we've heard from numerous sources that there have been multiple affairs over the years.
And this is her right here, right?
Yep.
I believe that is her.
That's pretty good. Bit of little surveillance you got there. Good work.
That's in one of the local restaurants down there.
Yeah, and this is Stephen right here, and this is when was this? Like after all of this? Like recently?
November 8th, 2017. November 8th, 2017, at a local restaurant.
Are they still seeing each other now?
To our knowledge, no.
Okay.
From what we've been told is her, and because she was married also, her and her husband, he transferred to D.C. and they have moved up into that area from what we were told. Now, I don't know how accurate it is, but
it is. So she stayed
married. That's correct. That's correct, Randy.
Yeah.
So he stayed married.
I have a question.
She stayed married. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, for the gentleman that knew Steve for a long time, what was his first marriage like?
I didn't know the first marriage. I I knew him after that, and we were actually working together, and I was going through a divorce, and he went through a nasty divorce. Him and Nan were dating at that time when he started with the fire department, if I remember correctly. I don't believe they were married yet. But he was very, very angry about how much money he had to pay every month to his ex-wife. And
So
he
that
referred to her as
struggling with-
He referred to what?
he referred to his ex-wife, Mitzi, I believe, is that, if I got that right, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
He referred to her as Satan and or the Antichrist, and he was very, very angry about that. As back to the affairs, there was numerous affairs in the period that I worked with him. I was directly over him, and when he started on, and he was actually my operator. And but anyway, there was numerous affairs, not just on one occasion. There was more than one.
Yeah, and that's what we've heard also. And he seems to have a pretty good pattern of trying to replace the one he has before he gets rid of her.
Yes. And that there was former employees that worked there, the dispatch, in the old building. Several affairs with different dispatchers, different employees when he worked at the assessor's office. There was a lot of Acadian ambulance employees. There was a whole bunch of them. And I roughly counting right off the top of my head, I know of 6. And it could have been way more than that. I don't know, and I can't confirm, that number. I don't know for certain.
Yeah, I mean, this guy isn't Tom Cruise or anything. I'm trying to figure out how he was.
He's a good talker. If you sat and listened to him, he is a good talker.
Okay.
So why? I mean, if he wants to have all these different women, why not just divorce Nanette?
Yeah.
Pride and money.
That seems to be the comment in a lot of cases is, why didn't they just get a divorce? Like you probably heard of the Chris Watts case. He killed his whole family. So, to be honest, it has a similar, I don't know, it's a similar feel to it. Like you've got somebody that he didn't want to have to pay out and just kind of wanted to move on. And I actually think that he probably would have still be with the blonde.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay, go ahead.
They're saying they can't hear you.
Oh, who can't? Right now?
They're saying somebody that I'm texting right now is telling me they can't hear you.
Are they on the call?
No, I believe they're on the internet.
Oh, can any of you guys hear me at all right now on the internet? Let me know.
Yeah. Oh.
Let's make sure.
Wait, now they're saying I think he's back.
Oh, well, I don't think they ever, they usually would type it in really quick. Yeah, now look at that. Oh my God. Yes, we can hear you. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. I actually think he'd probably be with that woman had it all been deemed. Or let's just say this. Let's say he had left the way normal people do, and he'd be with that person right now. That's what I think.
If he left, if he would have got divorced,
right,
and this didn't all blow up the way it did, I think he'd still be with her because our understanding was her husband left and moved to D.C. way before she did.
Right. And she must have had to go groveling back or something. I don't know why he would have taken her back. It's just, oh man.
Well, again, this we don't know her, so this is all stuff we hear through other people. But we were told it was after the first TV show,
Crime Watch Daily.
Crime Watch Daily, that's when she gave Steve the boot and took off.
Hmm. What was in that episode that made her do that? Was there something?
He said that he and Nanette were totally devoted to each other, and I imagine if you're the other half, that might be upsetting.
Right, and she knew that was probably, and she probably knew that was a lie. I would think, right? Because she's the one that had conversations.
Either she knew it was Either she knew it was a lie,
or he
was
lied to
having
her.
regrets and missing Nanette. One of the two, but either way, I would assume very few women would think kindly of you saying that on national TV if you're in a relationship with them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, to the point where her daughter, we're told, called Steve Dad.
Jeez, he must have been around all the time. I mean,
can you hear me?
So hi
Yeah.
everybody. This is Wendy, and I was on the call the other night, but I didn't talk. This is Nan's sister on her mom's side. I met with the sheriff's office on November 5th, and Daniel Buckner said that after our conference call, when the other siblings got to see the video, and we were just on a conference call, myself and everyone from Iowa, that they reached out to Sarah after that because we asked them why they haven't brought in anyone for interviewing when it's an ongoing investigation, that's very important, that they should be bringing people in periodically, especially when Steve was forced into retirement and Sarah quit her job and moved away, that they probably should have brought her in for questioning. And so they called Sarah, and Sarah told them that Steve and her did not have a bad breakup, that they talk 3 and 4 times a week, and that they are still very good friends, and that he cannot verify that her and her husband are together. That she did move with him because that's where the kids were going, but he could not give me any information if they were together. So, someone has mentioned that she got away and moved away to get away from the heat. So they could still be together still.
That's interesting.
When you
that's
say
that's what I was
Wendy,
told on the...
Sarah clarify
and
when
Steve
you say they. Do you mean Sarah and her husband, or
Steve
Sarah
and Sarah?
Steve?
No, Steve and Sarah could still be together. So then I was told that Steve went out of town on November 5th. Well, he was out of town when I was in town on November 5th. So I was told he went out of town with his mom, which, of course, that's not going to happen. But I was like, well, maybe it's true. So I decided to go to Steve's house to see if Brian was there, because I thought that Brian would talk to me if he saw me. I know Brian from a long time ago. I don't think Brian has anything to do with this. And so I wanted to talk to Brian. So I went to the house, and it looked like Fort Knox. So I was like, that's weird. Only one light was on. So I went to the house. I parked on the side of the house, and I went to the front door, knocked on the door. Nobody came to the door. Couldn't hear anything. And when I parked on the side of the house, only one light was on, and it was kind of like that window that comes out of the kitchen. And when I went back to my car, I waited for a while, knocked several times, rang the doorbell. No one came. When I went to the side of the house to get back in my car, there were 2 additional lights on. And then I saw Steve's mom peering through the blinds, shutting the blinds. So I didn't make any headway, but I bet if Steve was out of town that weekend with his camper, like I was told, I bet he went to go see Sarah. I think they're still seeing each other. By what Daniel Buckner told me, he said they're still very close, they're still very good friends, and they talk 3 to 4 times a week. And that all the rumors about them not having a bad breakup is not true.
Wendy, you saw the video, the McDonald's video.
Yeah, I mean, it's blurry. You can't tell who's in the car. I don't know why they talk about a watch. You can't see a watch. You see movement in the car, but you can't tell if it's an animal. It could be someone's arm moving, in the car. You see a little bit of movement in between, like the console in the middle of the 2 front seats, but it's so blurry, you can't see what's going on. And you can't tell. It looks like a small frame person. It definitely is not a large person.
Yeah, let me interject. Can you tell me where on where the shot was coming from that the surveillance was? Was it on top of the McDonald's?
It looks like it's on top of a building. It's not in the drive-thru. So
Right.
it's not the drive-through window.
Okay,
No.
so what can you see
It's-
though? Like, well, I mean, where I'm trying to figure out what direction it's coming from. So in your brain, when you're picturing back, what angle? Like, here's McDonald's. Can you see it on the screen right there? What angle did it come in?
Well,
at?
I'm on the call, so I can't. I'm not on. How do I get back on that screen? Because I called in.
Oh, well, you just okay, yeah. Well, was it? So was it in? The car
so it's
wasn't in the
on-
drive-through
so
though,
what
right?
what you can see on an aerial view is almost like the you can see a little bit of the windshield on the side of the front, and you can't see in the window of the side of the car. So it's between the windshield and the window of the driver's side of the car. So the part of the car where you can't see. So it's like divided. It's almost like it's strategically placed, and someone knew that was going to be the only camera that we could get footage of. It's the craziest thing because every place has cameras nowadays. There's so much technology out there, and the fact that this is so grainy and it's so high up and it's in between the windshield of the driver's side and the window, and so you can't see in the windshield and you can't see in the window. You can only see that it looks like a small frame person, which could be Steve's mom, by the way, or because she's a small frame lady.
So when you say high up, does it seem like it then could be coming from the Walmart or whatever that building is over there?
Yeah, it looks like it could be coming from the Walgreens. Yes.
The Walgreens. So it's far away.
Definitely not. Yeah, it's definitely not. And then they offered to show me pictures where they zoomed in, but they said they were worse. And so I asked them to go get those pictures, but they never convenently went and got those pictures.
I always try to tell people
they did
that,
mention,
like when there's surveillance footage, and it starts off at like 1080p, and people try to zoom in on it, it's actually better to look at it from a distance at that point, because now you're just looking at
that's what they were saying.
You're
But
looking at pixels.
I still wanted to see them. They offered them to me. I didn't get them. But the other thing is they did mention that they were getting the FBI together to show you guys the footage, but I can tell you it's not worth driving in town for 17 hours to look at, because they've been holding out on this video, and I told them point blank, you've been holding out on this video, and you swore 99% it was my sister, and this proves nothing. So why have you been telling me this for a year and a half? And so they said because of Nan's phone records.
Well, I think that
her
proves.
phone records,
I think this proves what the theory. I think that what they did is they said, oh yeah, we can tell that Nanette was at the McDonald's, and therefore, and we can't show you because of investigative reasons the rest of the actual surveillance footage, because they know that they can't prove shit by looking at it. By looking at it, it doesn't prove anything. So they don't want to ever show that to anybody, because it won't be conclusive, and that's what they don't want to have to admit, is that information. So I think that kind of proves that. So let me ask you this. The other night, I think it was Amy called in, and she was like, oh, yeah, I can't talk about the surveillance. It's really...
Well, I think y'all misunderstood her a little bit. I mean, my sister kind of talks a little condescending. It's just her personality. But I don't think she meant, like, I can't tell you anything else. I think she meant, like, there's nothing else to tell. Like, I don't think she meant it the way you took that part. But that's just kind of how she talks. So in her defense a little bit, which I don't usually defend my sister completely all the time, but I don't think she meant it the way that you guys took it. She wasn't trying to hold out on anything. There's really nothing in the video. I mean, they've been hyping this video up for a year and a half, and then when I got to see it on November 5th, it's a big disappointment. But I knew it would be, because I talked to my brother and my sister when they saw it, and they both said, the same thing I said. So it is very disappointing.
So they didn't ask you then. They didn't ask you to not say anything then, right? They didn't say, hey, don't tell anybody what you saw. No. Anything like that? Okay.
No, but they were going to release the video when we had the conference call, and when my brother and my sister saw it in person, they were going to release the video to ask the public for help. But then they decided not to, because they hadn't interviewed anybody in the parking lot at McDonald's. So
see, what would they be asking for, though? See, that's a confusing thing. Like, oh, let's release the video and try to get the public's help to what? Identify her? Or is there something else in the video that people could know that they're concerned about. That's what it seems like, unless my original theory is right. They're just trying to not have to show it, to show that they can't be sure about it. But I'm trying to figure out, is there something else when you watched it? Was there, something else that I don't know. I'm confused about the whole.
No, but
surveillance.
there were cars in the parking lot. But this is the thing: nobody knows my sister went to McDonald's that day, so it's not like the public's going to know or remember that day.
Right.
If they would have released it and said, "Hey, she was at McDonald's," when they would have released it that those few days, because my brother-in-law knew that my sister went to McDonald's the night of the fire, because he called my brother up the night of the fire and said, "Look, I just went through our charges, and Nan went to McDonald's today." So the night of the fire, Steve knew that Nan went to McDonald's because he looked up his charges on the internet, and he called my brother after he was only interrogated for an hour and a half, and he called my brother up and said, "Hey, Nan went to McDonald's today." So it's almost like he wanted to prove his steps. But the thing is, they should have released it to the public, and they should have been like, "Look, this person that was burned in her home today was at McDonald's this morning. Does anybody remember that?"
Like the drive-through girl.
Nobody's going to remember that now.
Like the drive-through person that gave her the food probably would. Oh yeah, I remember her. Yeah, she had a dog running around, especially if there was a dog, right? Like you'd remember that.
And wherever Steve went for his meetings on that Friday, whoever he was meeting with, they should have pulled the cameras from that restaurant to act and see what Steve was doing during those meetings. Was he really at those meetings? Was he on his phone the whole time? Was he getting up from the table and having conversations on his phone with people while he was making sure things were in place for whatever happened, the catastrophe that happened at my sister's house? I mean, those things should have been pulled, and now it's too late.
Yeah. It sucks. I'd like to see it for one. I like to analyze surveillance footage. As my channel, people on my channel know that's what I do a lot. Let's see. Well, who was the one?
You said that.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
You were saying that Steve knew about the McDonald's charge Friday night.
Yeah, he called Chad, all excited, like, she was at McDonald's today. Oh yeah, he called.
Now on Monday, he had told us the fire was Friday afternoon. On Monday, he had told us that he found out about the charges. I believe it was Sunday or Saturday. So
right, and I heard that on the call, and I called to confirm to my brother. I didn't want to say anything the day of the call because I wasn't completely sure, but I could have sworn my brother, because I immediately thought Steve had something to do with this. And my brother, of course, was like, don't jump to conclusions. And then when he called me and was like, "Oh, look, he called me and told me that Nan was at McDonald's," I was like, "Oh, well, he's just confirming his alibi." He waited a few hours, and he knew that Nan, he knew that charge was going to be there. And so he's just calling you he thinks that you're the only one he can pull the wool over your eyes, because he knows that Amy and you can't do that for. So, no, but he called him that night.
Well, that goes back to Steve. His story changes, and there are so many things that his story has changed about through this thing, from what he told us originally to what he said later, or what was found out later. Just like there were so many things with the actual fire scene that his story did not match up. And when you call him out on it or question him, then he changes the subject or walks away.
Right. And I'm still trying to get clarification, because, from the beginning, when we met with Cox, a few weeks after Nan's death, my sister, I flew in and we met with Cox. He told me that that Justin, he had proof that Justin flew on a plane. He had proof. I said, well, anybody can buy a ticket and not take the plane. How do you know he went on the plane? We have proof he was on the plane, and we can't give you that information right now. Well, now that show says that Justin drove in. I'm still waiting for clarification on that. I'm still waiting to find out, because I've been told from day one that Justin flew in. And now that show says that Justin and his wife drove in.
And I have a text message from Steve saying that Justin flew back on Sunday after the memorial service.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so I'm still trying to get clarification of that.
Is the person on here that doesn't want to say their name still here?
I'm still here.
Yeah, so tell me us about some of your conversations you've had with with good old Steven there.
What kind of conversations you want? You give me an outline or give me a direction to go in.
Had he ever?
Can I just say for a second? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey. Yeah.
Yeah, I was curious if with the caller too has he ever mentioned to anybody, hey, about a previous wife, if he could get rid of her, if only I could kill her. The rumor around the firehouse was that he had mentioned something like he had camoed out and tried to kill the first wife with a crossbow but couldn't do it, and then maybe even tried to solicit someone to help murder the first wife. I don't know if that's true. If anybody has anything to add to that.
As far as the camo out and crossbow he had a compound bow, and I know about it. I don't know if that the person that actually knows firsthand that he told that to is on the line or not, but he told that story to them. As for me, he, as I mentioned earlier, that I went through a pretty bad divorce, and he mentioned in passing one time that he said, "Look, you kill my wife, I'll kill yours." And I just kind of took it as a joke. From there, it more than once, and another time he mentioned it, and the same thing. And he said, "Look, I make sure you got an alibi. I got a gun for you and everything." And I kind of took a little more seriously about it. Said, "No, I don't want anything to happen to my wife," and I made it clear. And from there, he said, "Man, think about all the money you're paying, and think about all the money I'm paying." And then from there, it happened numerous times that it was offered. Even money was offered. Had alibis for me, whatever, women that would cover for me to go take care of it. Vehicles, anything and everything that would to try and entice me to go. And naturally, no, because I didn't want any part of that, and that's not the type of person that I am. And I'm worried that he would come after my wife, my ex-wife, my family members. That's one thing, but I've told the sheriff's office and state fire marshal and everybody else that I'm honestly wouldn't put it past him that he would try to come after me. And as I say that I'm very nervous about that.
How serious was he on this stuff?
I'm not a scared person by no means. I'm a very, straightforward and big guy, not a little bitty wimp or anything like that. And he's very vindictive. He is a manipulative to the umpteenth degree. He is the picture that they paint on TV and the card that he's playing, the victim card that he lost his wife, all these things. It's a game, and he's putting on a game face and playing this. And like I said, I
would like to commend you for coming forward. I'd like to commend all the sisters, the cousins, the women who've stepped forward and have opened up. And for everyone that's listening, it takes courage to stop this. And for the call there, I'm so proud of what you've done, and it shows great courage for what you're doing. You're standing up for other people. For Nan, she can't speak for herself anymore. She can't stand up, so it's for us to do it. In all the listeners and everyone out there, it's time to quit being scared of this guy and speak up. I know everything that was just said has been brought to the FBI, the sheriff's office, the fire marshal's office. They have all this information. We've got a guy here who has the knowledge to use incendiary devices to set fires. He had a house that was built to withstand fires, and it was burned to the ground like nothing anyone, I guess, has ever seen before. He has numerous affairs in the past. He's got a record where it was just stated where he would willing to kill his first wife. I can go as far as with Sarah, the recent love of his life. I've never seen a man more obsessed with a woman than he was with her. At the fire station 6 months prior, I made a prediction. I was afraid that he would get killed because Sarah's husband is a federal agent and carries guns. And I said, well, this guy will not stand for his wife running around with him, and he'll kill him. And I thought that Nan would probably put an end to it as well. And this has happened. He was out there with it. He wanted everyone to see that he was with her. There was said earlier too, and I heard as well, that her daughter referred to Steve as Daddy. So it's definitely he was madly in love with the woman. Would have done anything. We've just heard that he wanted to kill his first wife. So he would definitely do it this time around. Why he's not in jail, I do not know. So we just continue to hope and pray that it happens.
Can I ask a question or a follow-up from the earlier, when he was talking to you about taking out exes, or was he like absolutely serious in your mind, like literally planning and really trying to get you to do it?
After the first time he mentioned it, at the first time I didn't think he was really serious. After multiple times of it, I said, he's thought this out. And then as I got to know him and got to know Nan better, Nan knew my children and things like that, and I got pretty close to them. I knew them very well. I know Nan would have never, ever stood for adultery. And she even told me that she told him that, she wouldn't. And I'm not going to go into great detail with that, being that this is a public thing. But she said that she wouldn't stand for it. And she told me that. And to think that she was okay with this and knew about it, and that it just beyond me, because knowing her, unless she changed in the years, since I was away from them, it would have to be a drastic change for her to change her opinion of it. Because she was very adamant about that she would not stand for him cheating or having an affair or anything else.
Wow.
No, she would never have tolerated that. And it's very apparent in the second story on People Investigate. He changes his story from the first show. Because the first show, he says that she was aware of it and she was okay with it. The second show, he says that it didn't look like it was going to work out between them. And that is the truth.
Wait, there's a second show on People, the episode 1, season 3, called like Someone's Watching. Is there one after that on People?
No,
there was
the Crime Watch Daily one.
Oh, Crime Watch Daily. Okay, I see. All right. Thought I was losing my mind for a moment. Like, wow, how did I miss that? Let's see.
Yeah.
Well, do you guys have anything else you want to add to this? I mean, we can do these, ever so often with new information, or even just things that you think about. We could discuss those, because I think we need to just kind of keep this in the public's eye. It's a lot of these cases they just disappear sometimes if you don't do that. I think Gina brought this case up to me like right when it happened, basically, maybe just a week or maybe within a month after, and we talked about it, and then it just sort of went away, and it seems like I'm not in your minds, obviously, but in the public. And then she came back about a month ago and said, hey, look, and it was going to be it had a couple different shows with it, and that's great news because it gets people aware. But it's amazing how often cases that seems like they should get solved just sort of disappear into oblivion until people bring it back up. So hopefully we can just keep it going. Yeah.
And this one has so much going on, so many different directions, that we would love, if more people would call in and tell us what they know.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I mean, we've already. It seems like when you guys are, we have 7 people on right now. As a matter of fact, on the phone, there was 8 earlier. Go ahead.
As far as my story, I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to cut somebody off there. As far as my story and what I know, there's others that witnessed, and he did it in front of them. And so maybe, I don't know if they're worried about retaliation or coming forward. And I can tell you firsthand that I hope that nothing happens, but at least I made it known that I came forward, and it's hopefully nothing happens to me. Some of the guys that are on the phone know who I am, but I just really, like I said, I got really nervous, and I'm still nervous. I'm worried, and I hope nothing happens to me, but I wouldn't. I told the sheriff's deputies and state fire marshal the same thing. I said, if he did, which I wouldn't put it past him. I wouldn't put it past him coming after me. So,
well, I think you're safer
my family
now.
members and things like that.
I think you're safer now, actually, putting it out in the public. That way,
Absolutely.
it's your record's already there. Now there's nothing to gain by, silencing you. I guess you just said it. All right. So
I agree. I agree exactly with that. I've tried to tell people the louder you talk, the safer you are. The more you put it out there, it's the ones who won't speak up, or the ones more at risk. And I always try and put myself in the family's position, or if someone else. People have to speak up. I don't want to get involved, and that kind of has to come to an end. We got to help each other. So
do you guys want
I'm grateful for everyone on the line tonight. So thank you all.
Well, I appreciate you guys all.
Amen.
If you now, I don't know if you guys want, but people are saying if they want to ask questions. I don't. They can either type them in, but maybe I can have a caller. But you can only call in one at a time. All right. So let me. There's 7 people on already, but when they call in, I'll let you guys know that are already on here. Okay. They just called in, and then they can answer questions. Okay. But right when you're done asking the question, just hang up the phone and listen for the answer on the air, okay? All right, so I'm going to put the number on the screen, and here we go. Oh, here comes the mayhem. You watch. This is going to get nuts. All right. Hopefully it won't be one of the trolls that call in. All right, everybody. There's the number.
I hope it is.
Yeah, me too, actually. Then I can go to town. Well, waiting for the call. People wanted to call in. Well, it might take a minute for them to dial it, hit the button. But, man, it must be just a nightmare for you guys having to just keep waiting, following it. Nothing's going on. It just seems like, yeah, they give you this lip service. I mean, even the sheriff said that it's a murder on the People magazine show. But it doesn't seem like they're going to do anything.
To get that.
Yeah. What was that?
Has anyone from the family? I'd like to ask this question. Anyone heard anything about any friends that Nan may have known, or any texts that maybe even she had with anyone with the sheriff himself? I've heard that kind of rumor go around. Has anyone heard about that?
I haven't heard about that.
Okay.
I heard it was. I was told it was via Facebook, but I don't know for certain of that, and I don't know the truth of that. That they were messaging back and forth on Facebook, I think, at one time, but I'm not for certain of that, and can't verify.
Yeah, that was part of the rumor mill too. That Steve was saying that they were texts on Nan's phone from the sheriff or something. I guess that was part of his smoke screen, or I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, let me see. Maybe the people can type questions in. Maybe just type the questions in. I guess the people that were saying, hey, I'll call in, they were just saying that. Lip service, right? Come on! Have some guts. All right? Let's see. Well, you don't need to call in and ask a question from chat. Just type the question in and I'll read the... Okay, here comes somebody right here. All right. So somebody's calling right now, right? All right, you're on the air. What is your question?
Hi, Gray. My question is, for the family, have they thought about hiring a private detective? Maybe if you can hook them up with Sheila? Just a question. Good idea, I think.
Thanks,
but I'm not sure if you already hired somebody. Thank you.
Okay. All right, bye. Bye. Okay, I think... hold on. Okay, I actually finally figured out how to do it. Somebody called in. I hit the wrong button, but you guys were all on hold, and then I just hit resume call. Oh, God, I was so nervous. I thought I just hung up on 7 people. Okay, did you get the question? Did you guys hear that?
No.
Okay, so you were on hold. You didn't hear it. Okay, it was, have you guys thought of hiring a private investigator, like maybe Sheila Wysocki, who I am friends with? That's why she said that, but that was the question.
We have thought about that, looked into it, talked to a few people. The only problem we have is the things that we need or want to show, was she alive, the things we need for our forensic pathologist. I don't think a private investigator would be able to obtain because it's an ongoing criminal investigation.
All right. Yeah, I said, hey, type in the questions for me to ask, and somebody said, read through the chat, and there's many. Well, you want me to scroll all the way up there? Come on, you guys, help out a little bit here. Just type in the question here, and then I'll see it. Maybe type in all caps. I don't have time to scroll up and read all the ones from earlier. Yeah, I don't see any in there. It says, what about the guy who got something of jail? Got of jail. The cousin. Someone said, what about the cousin? I don't even know what they're referring to.
The cousin neighbor?
Yeah. Well, I remember there's the stepson. That was somebody that was sort of suspicious, and then there was also his brother, right? Stephen's brother, right?
Yeah.
And that was kind of strange that his tracking wasn't working, right? Like, wow, this guy that you're scared of, his tracking doesn't happen to be working, but there's no evidence. I mean, then the only evidence they have that he was at his house was I guess that was said earlier, was a clock behind the surveillance that was being shot, right? Yeah, so there was that. Are you guys all still here?
Yep.
Yes.
And Steve's cousin is the one who told Steve about the fire, the cousin's kids were at home, and that's Steve's neighbor. And they had saw smoke and called their dad. Dad called Steve and told the kids to call 911, is what Steve said.
Oh, yeah. Hey, now that all of you are on here, I got to say, I mean, we were talking about this on the other show, but when you watch this, I mean, can you guys see the screen here, the dash cam? This guy doesn't look at all like somebody who's thinking, wow, my entire house is built down. The one that are burning down. The house that I designed, and my wife might even be in there, and the pets. Look at this. Look at the face. It's crazy. Oh, looking down at something. Yeah, maybe watching my speed. And then, like he's just kind of glancing over there. This guy over here looks like a deer in the headlights, right? And then he stops. Oh, let me check.
There's so many odd things.
Like, look at right there. What is that right there?
He doesn't ask his brother. He doesn't ask his brother if he did it. He's leaving that up to the police. Who does that? He stayed at his parents' house or his mom's house with the brother the night of the fire, but you think your brother might have something to do with it. And the oddest thing of everything that still haunts me and I still picture in my head is the son on the altar taking pictures with a professional camera during the entire service of my sisters. He took pictures in the hall, and he had that camera the whole time with him. Who takes pictures at a memorial when people are mourning the loss of someone, especially something tragic like that?
Well, who was taking the pictures? Steven?
Justin, the son.
Oh, the son. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's weird. It's not weird that somebody's taking pictures. It's weird when it's somebody that should be really upset is taking the pictures, right? Like a family member. Like sometimes you hire people to actually take pictures at a memorial service. But yeah, it's weird that a family member is taking pictures, right? I find that is strange. But like, look at it right here. He's just kind of sitting there looking down like he's about ready to take his seatbelt off. That face doesn't have any anxiety on it whatsoever. Nothing. I mean, I'm not an expert in that kind of stuff, but I can just tell you, looking at it. You know, just different crimes I've looked at. This is one where you look at it and you just go, wow. He doesn't look like... Go ahead.
I agree with you completely on that. And this is a video that Steve showed us at dinner one night because he kept wanting us to see how quick he was trying to get there. And this was one of the times when he lied to us, and then all of a sudden he wouldn't talk to us about it because he had been telling me, or all of us, the whole time that when he pulled up, the house was down. In the fire industry, when somebody says the house is down, that means it's leveled. Nothing is standing for the most part. What he has is a fully engulfed structure here, and when he showed us the video, he wanted us to watch him and see how the truck's bouncing around. I was watching the other screen, and I asked him, I said, you said that house was down. It's not down. He shut the video off, and he was done talking to us about it, and he put the phone away. So that was just another one of the times he was lying to us. And yes, his face in that, he does not look at all surprised, like he knew what he was going to pull around the corner.
Exactly. Now look at the other guy.
The other thing,
God, he's bug eyes.
You don't see on the video here.
Yeah, go
ahead. Hello, are you there?
Yeah, I can hear
you. The other thing which you don't see in this video here is after he arrived and they get out of the vehicle, the first due truck arrived shortly behind them, and he grabbed a line and started spraying it on his man cave or outbuilding or whatever. And I asked him why, and he said that's what they're trained to do. It was just automatic. He's right. That is what you're trained to do. Hit the savable structures, the house is gone. But if you don't know where your wife is, you are not going to grab a line. You're going to be hollering for her. Yeah. You're going to be running to the neighbors, seeing if she's there. You definitely, even if all our training tells us save what you can save, you are going to hit that fire with the water. You're going to start attacking that house because you don't know if she's in there. Obviously, if anyone's in there, they haven't survived. But you're still going to go after the house. You're not going to worry about your little fucking garage outside.
Right. Let me ask you something. Since you guys are familiar with fires, I'm sure the answer is going to be no to what I'm going to say. But you see how the smoke's coming right from there? Does that have any indication of where the hot zone was, where it started, or anything like that? No. Okay. See, I was right. No. Yes, I was right that it was no. It was the answer.
But now that you mentioned the smoke, it's another one of Steve's long ongoing lies, even in the TV shows and stuff. When they were coming to the fire, he could see the smoke, and he was just hoping it was the trees on fire. That is not the smoke you're going to see if the trees are on fire.
Well, plus he's full of shit because right here he's looking at it.
You have something involved with a lot of man-made materials with petroleum base to them.
Right.
Not a bunch of trees in a forest.
Right, and also right here, he can see the house. So we're looking at, you're back here.
No, he meant before he could see the house when he was on the highway coming. Because he would have seen this smoke from miles away.
Oh, yeah, easily. Yeah, it looks like but, I mean, I just think I've never seen, he didn't even have one wrinkle in his forehead. His his cheeks are almost just totally relaxed. This guy over here on the left, you guys probably can't see it as good on the internet, but his eyes are bugging out. And, man, when they get there, God, he just hops out. He's getting the hell over there. Where he's like, the part that bugs me the most is right there, looking down at something. Yeah. Who the hell's looking at anything other than looking outside? You got this burning house. Oh my God, you're just rushing out. Not, I don't know, man. That just drives me nuts.
Yeah, and Steve's just taking it nonchalant. We have. I'll guarantee you, my guys look more concerned and are out of their truck quicker than he's out of this car when they're pulling up to a total stranger's house that's on fire.
Yeah. Probably even just a trash can on fire. They probably look more... let's see. There's somebody did ask a question in here about, was there any confirmation that the pets were shot or anything like that?
They could not tell.
They're just too
There
burned.
wasn't enough left to be sure.
Right. Well, how about this? Did they find any... If they sifted through, they would have maybe found bullets somewhere, right?
You would hope so, but then again, with a concrete and tile floor, you don't know if they ricocheted, if they were shot, if they were shot in the house.
Right, that's true.
There's a lot of... if they were shot in that room, there's a lot of underlying things that would factor in there. And then the other thing is, you got to remember, from what we were told, and this story has changed a couple times with the sheriff, is the sheriff's department is the one that sifted through everything square foot by square foot. Well, they're not trained to do it. They don't know what they're looking for. Items look a whole lot different after they've been through a structure fire than they looked prior to.
I want to say there's some pictures of actual Fire District 12 employees being sifted through there. I remember seeing something that some of the guys were helping sift through some of the rubble there. And I want to say it was a private investigator that was doing the investigation, but I'm not for certain of the sifting through. But I can't say for certain of that either. That was what I was told.
The private the private fire or arson investigator, from our understanding, yes, he was there. He went through a lot of stuff, but he had not gotten to the point where he was starting to sift through anything before he was either asked to leave the scene or walked off the scene. The other thing everybody's got to remember is this fire happened on Friday. We arrived Monday morning. At that point, it was not investigated, at least not to any real degree. People may have looked at it and walked around it, but everything was still there, like you would normally see once the fire is extinguished. But the sheriff's department and fire marshal, the fire marshal had already turned it over to the sheriff, and the sheriff already turned it over to Steve. So Steve had free reign to go in, either leave anything in any spot he wanted or remove anything from any spot he wanted without anyone knowing, because the sheriff walked off the scene and released it to him. When we arrived Monday, there was no law enforcement there. There were no state fire marshal employees there. There were no fire department employees there. There were no coroner people there. It was just Steve his son, daughter-in-law, and us. And we could have done anything we wanted as far as looked at things, moved things in that fire scene. So the downside is because of either the fire marshal or sheriff or a combination of both of them not giving two shits about how this turns out and not trying to investigate it, is they've compromised any evidence that would have been found on that scene.
You're 100% correct. That was the chain of evidence there, because it is would have been considered a crime scene. I would have thought, even if it was suicide or anything like that, they should have maintained that until it was, completely cleaned, and sifted through, and evidence would have been not.
Yes,
that
absolutely.
Was,
You're 100% basic, correct.
That is basic thing, and we would remain on scene. Remain on scene until state fire marshal would show up on a scene and would release us from the scene when we suspected arson. So, or we'd have sheriff's office out there, somebody there to maintain that chain of evidence as far as the way things go. And but it kind of seemed suspicious there to me too. I kind of wondered about whether the chain of evidence was, maintained, and the investigation part of it, it seemed kind of botched at best.
It was totally botched, and I have trouble believing, because I know how we would do it up here, and I've talked to other people on fire departments down in Louisiana and people in law enforcement, and it doesn't even fall under incompetent to me. This was totally deliberate, in my opinion, because the sheriff's department told us they consider it a crime scene and a homicide from the moment it started until proven otherwise. Well, what kind of law enforcement would walk off a scene before it's been investigated if that's truly what you felt it was? And they knew there was a gunshot involved Saturday morning is when the coroner contacted them and told them, and they still gave the scene up to Steve prior to it being investigated, all the way to the point as law enforcement, if we're on a scene and we not notice any type of weapons on a scene, we inform law enforcement and they remove them. When I walked through that scene on Monday, I found a firearm in plain sight. Kim even has a picture of it, of a long gun sitting right in the center of their bed in the master bedroom. There was a remnants of an AR sitting right on the bed. What kind of law enforcement agency would remove that before they turn over the scene?
I agree. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
That's wild.
Those type things, the next thing that was all of his guns there. I know there were some items that were missing, quote unquote. I was told that a Rolex watch or something was missing, and that couldn't be accounted for, and those type things.
From what we've heard, the Rolex you're speaking of was Steve's father's and given to Steve. I don't know if that was prior to or after his father's death. It doesn't matter, but Steve had this Rolex that belonged to his dad, and they have not, it's never been accounted for. Now, again, even though you look at this fire, the other gentleman on here that has, that's on the fire department or has fire history will be able to tell you this too. This house got very hot, but it did not get hot enough to destroy a watch. You would have found the remnants of it. You would have found the bezel. If it had a metal bracelet, you'd have found the bracelet. You would have been, the crystal would have still been there, and most likely the crystal would have protected the dial face where you'd have been able to tell it was a Rolex.
That was what I was getting at. That's exactly what I'm saying. My history with firefighting, things like that, and arson cases and things like that, the pictures if there's enough of the house left. Pictures on the wall, because nobody's going to let their pictures burn up in the house. That was always a telltale thing. Back to men and guns, they wouldn't let all their guns burn up. Those type things were always, telltale signs that house, something wasn't right. Well, where's all of his guns? Did you have guns? Or because we would ask, and it's just to try and if they're there, salvage it and save that kind of stuff. But there's guns there, but were they just left behind, the stuff that he didn't care about, or was all of his other guns safely stored somewhere else? That's because I know he had a lot of guns, and Nanette had several guns, I know, and they enjoyed shooting and things like that. So that raises some questions there. Maybe somebody can answer that.
I agree with you 100%. And when I didn't walk through the whole scene. Again, I didn't want to trample through their scene, even though I was disappointed that they had already compromised the entire scene by leaving it. Justin was there, and we only walked into the master bedroom and left it at that. But everyone sees the pictures, and yeah, everything was lost and destroyed, they say. Not exactly. When the fire happens, everything is changed, but for the most part, everything is still there. It's just not the way you're used to seeing it, and you sometimes got to know what to look for. We even found a scrapbook in the bedroom that Justin found and opened it up, and he still had pictures in it that he wanted to keep. So not everything is totally destroyed. It's just damaged or changed from what you're used to seeing.
Correct. Prime example of it was a arson fire, and I got called in on that investigation to testify on it, and they had a list of things that were supposedly in the house: Armani suits, surround sound systems and things like that. And the investigation photos, I said, well, do you see any of that evidence of that being there? I said, that's the picture tube of a small television. It's not a 60-inch, flat screen or something. It's everything didn't pass the picture test there because it was changed, but there was evidence of what was there. I said, that's an old television. It has a picture tube. I said, that wasn't anything that was new. Do you see remnants of the magnets from the speakers and things, all this? And back to that, there's evidence of what was there. The suits and all this other stuff that was in there, supposedly that closet didn't even burn, and that and that's the type things that doesn't it leads people to get caught. But I don't know if he removed all the items out of there that he wanted or had in a safe place, or if anything like that did happen. I couldn't answer that, but I never did visit the scene there. But it makes me question that.
Yeah, and I would question it too, because back to the Rolex. If it was in that house, it should have been found if they sifted through every square foot. If it wasn't found, it wasn't in the house. In turn, where is it? Because it's got to be somewhere. The other thing is, I still got a question that the Sheriff's Department hasn't answered. Steve hasn't answered it. Why is there an AR sitting in the center of your bed that you just slept in, earlier that day? I've got a small gun collection of my own, and I guarantee you're not going to find one of my ARs laying in the bed between Kim and I tonight.
Well, maybe it was because earlier maybe somebody just said, yeah, that's crazy, right? But I mean, maybe somebody, what you just said a minute ago, you're taught that if there's guns left there and this thing is left there and that one, then it's then it's probably not arson, right? So he would think, let's say you're somebody that knows all those things, you would make sure that all the guns burnt in the fire, all these things that you wouldn't expect to see if it wasn't, or let's see, all the things that you would expect to see if it was an arson. He makes sure that you can't see those things. See?
Well, that would actually explain one of the things that he said to, I believe it was Kim and Dan, about he was excited to map out all the guns and make sure that they were all accounted for.
Jesus, really? Wow.
Well, okay. I mean, I don't know. And I'm asking this as he had from what I understand, extensive gun collection, and I know he had a bunch of them in the past that I know for certain, unless he sold them all. Meanwhile, in that time frame there, but I know he had a pretty extensive gun collection. But were they inside the house, or did you just leave some behind in the house as it burnt? That there wasn't really anything of value. Something that what would be real questionable would be the ones that were family heirloom type thing, something that was passed down from generation to generation. That type is what I'm saying.
I agree with you. That's what really makes me wonder about this watch from his dad, because I can see him with his training he has leaving everything in the house, because that's a big way when people burn down their house, they get caught, is because they have stuff they don't want to lose and they take it out beforehand. So I can see him leaving all the guns. Those are easily to be replaced. What's not easily replaced is the Rolex his dad wore for years and years. But what throws me is where some of the guns were found, because it's just odd to me. If my house burned down tonight, you're going to find a bunch of guns, and they're all going to be in the same area. They're not going to be scattered throughout the house.
Right. And someone had told me that he, in the man cave or something like that, he had a gun safe out there or something, and that's where most of his stuff, his collection of whatever was. And I don't know if that's fact, or if someone on the line there can say that.
We were in the man cave and seen most of it, but I don't recall seeing a safe. But that would not surprise me, because all the guns that the sheriff and his people have mentioned to us and where they were found, they kept saying Nan's gun that she had in her car, Nan's gun she had in the kitchen, Nan's gun that she carried in her purse. I mean, I don't remember him mentioning Steve's guns anywhere. So I don't know if they found them and they were in the house, or if they weren't in the house.
Well, I'll say that this is Lori, that I went unexpectedly out to the property in October after she was murdered, and he let us into the man cave, and I can assure you there were no guns or safes or anything like that out there. And he did take out a small box, almost like a shoe box, and it was filled with the jewelry that was found in the house. So like they said, if the Rolex was there, it would not have burned, because, yes, the jewelry was damaged. You could tell it had been through a fire, but you could still make out what was a watch, what was a ring, what was a bracelet, but there was no Rolex. And he made a comment about how there was no Rolex found.
Is this the man cave right here that I'm circling on the screen? Or is it this thing over here?
Yeah.
Right there. Okay. All right.
It's the off-white building there you're looking at.
Okay.
Lori, didn't he have his father's urn? Oh, sorry.
No. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, even though he told us that it was at his mom's house prior to that. But yeah, his dad's urn was there in the man cave as well. which I think it should have been. No, in fact, he said it used to be in the house. So why would why would the urn be in the man cave after the fire? Because I'm pretty sure that would have burnt in the fire.
If you know the house is going to burn, you probably remove it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
Very good. You mentioned the jewelry and things like that. Did they find Nanette's watch? That they show in the video saying, that the surveillance video that it looked like Nanette's watch and those type things. I was just curious if they found that or not.
How can they see? Not that you remember the question, but there's no way in hell you can make out anything on a surveillance footage from far away, and then you zoom in and you can see something on the wrist and go, "Oh, look, that's the watch." It's like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
People can claim stuff like that, but there's no way to see it that clearly because it's the detail is lost.
But
right, I don't know. I don't know what the watch looked like from the video because I didn't see the video. There was a watch that was in the remains that he showed us, but I have no idea if it was the one that she was supposedly wearing that day, or if she had. I'm pretty sure she probably had multiple watches.
Exactly.
The watch she was supposedly wearing that day was found, according to what we were told, was found in the kitchen in a dish. And according to Steve, every time she walked in the house, she would take her watch and all her jewelry off, which we have found pictures of her in the house since then that contradict that. So, again, Steve's words aren't matching up with facts.
Well, what I've noticed about Steven is he seems to really notice all these behaviors and really have them memorized of things that she did, and he sort of weaves them into the story to make his story sound better. Like, he thinks of all these things that she did. Like, oh yeah, she would normally do this, she would normally do that, normally do this, normally do that, and then he weaves it into the story, and then it's like, oh, okay, that's why that was. But in reality, we don't. I mean, and it's also weird that he's noticing those kinds of things. Like, I don't know, when my wife comes home, I don't notice every single place that she puts different items, right? But if you want to explain something to somebody, oh yeah, well, she always throws it into a dish, and therefore that's why we see it on the ground next to the dish, or something.
Well,
that's just something I
you're not a
noticed.
sociopath, narcissistic. That's how Steve is. When he's with a woman, that's what he does. He's psycho. He studies them. He controls them. He gets in their mind. I mean, my sister was his target. And when they talk about him being obsessed with Sarah, well, that's how he was the minute he got a hold of my sister. He was obsessed with her. So, he's the one that changed her name back to Nanette. I mean, my sister's name is Nan. He didn't like Nan. So within a week of her working for Steve, we all got a phone call that we all had to start calling her Nanette, that she didn't want to be called Nan anymore. He's crazy.
And he made the call? He's the guy that did that? Who called to say that?
Oh, yeah, that's...
Wow, what a psycho. That's crazy.
No, my sister called all of us to tell us that
but she
wanted to be
say
called Nanette from now on.
Yeah, but like, she didn't really want to be called that. Well, he might have sold her and made her believe that that's what she wanted, when in reality she never cared before, but that was him controlling her. Yeah. Wow, what a psycho.
Right.
Yeah, he got on to me because I had made a hashtag Justice for Nan, and he said it was highly inappropriate because Nanette hated being called Nan, that it made her feel inferior. It brought her back to memories of her past when she felt small. I mean, he really laid it on thick and wanted me to change the hashtag.
Wow, what an idiot. Hey, I mean, you gotta admit, like,
funny.
That's
That you mentioned that. You mentioned that, and she told my daughter to call her Nan. And if I remember right, the students that she taught at the daycare or school or whatever, didn't they call her Nan?
Yep, the only person
correct?
that wanted to call her Nanette was Steve. He wanted to change everything about her. Yeah.
Well, I apologize for putting Nanette in the title. Maybe I'll go change that. Jeez, that's wild.
Another thing that kind of bothered me was, and I can't remember when we asked the sheriff's department this, on one of the phone calls or when we were there in person, but the guy said, the guy we were speaking to, or the one that said it, and I wish I remembered which officer it was, but I asked them, as far as her vehicle goes, if they checked to see if that was, like, if the steering wheel and the seat and everything were in the position for someone man's height to drive it, and he didn't think they did, and he was going to check and let me know, but that's another thing the sheriff has never gotten back to us on or answered our question. The sheriff has never gotten back to us with any questions we've had, or that I've had, that I've asked personally, that the sheriff himself has said, I will get back to you with that. He never has followed up, and when we see him again and I ask again, he still doesn't have an answer.
Wild.
Never will.
Well, I think this might be a good time to end this show. Maybe we can. Listen. I'll tell you what. I'll do a show whenever you guys want to get together and talk about more stuff. All right. I will. And are you guys still there? I can't hear you.
Yeah, sounds good.
Oh, well, it looks like somebody's calling in, but I'm not going to answer this one. But
all right. Well, thank you for doing this again.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
No, you're welcome. I appreciate you guys all calling in. I know it's awful. To lose a family member like that, and it's just it's also really shitty that the police didn't do the right things early on, because now that investigative information is lost forever. Really, there's still some stuff out there, but maybe if we can.
Well, the downside is it is lost forever now because they didn't do it. But even if they did it, it's worthless in court because they released the scene to Steve.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
that's why it's invaluable to us that people are calling in and giving their information. So I really appreciate that too.
Yeah, so that's one thing too, and there'll be comments. You might want to check the comments out on the videos, because maybe people will leave something there that they might know. But I think it's this is a good way to keep it in the public, and maybe a different shows we can just have people call in mainly the whole time. Hey, hold on a second. There's just one person that's called 3 times. Maybe this is a big deal. Hold on a second. Hello, you're on the air. Do you have a question?
Hey guys. Most of y'all know me. I'm Renee.
Oh wait, hold on a second. Hold on a second though. Can you call right back, because I accidentally hung up on all of them. They can't hear what you're saying. So hold on 1 second. Okay. I forgot to do the.
Is everyone still here?
Yeah, I'm still here. You guys couldn't hear me again because the guy that called. Okay, I had to add him to the call. Hold on. Okay. All right. You're with everybody else. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Hey guys, it's Renee. How y'all doing this evening?
Hey, awesome. How are you?
Hey guys, I was just getting home. I was trying to get where I could call and lend my support and let everybody know, we're still fighting down here. We all know the truth and what happened, and we're going to keep fighting to help you guys down here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Renee.
Very cool.
Thank you.
And look, I can add to it, Steve is a complete psychopath. I've known him for 19 years, and I've told this story a bunch of times already. When me and Tom started doing things at the fire department, I said, Tom, we're going to be fighting for our jobs. And sure enough, Steve came after Tom. He came after me because we were trying to do the right thing. And he will go after people, and he will try and destroy your life when you go after him. So we're not backing down. We're going to keep supporting you guys, and we're going to find out eventually that he did it, and we're going to get justice for you guys.
I certainly hope you're right, because I think we all know, just from the things he's done and said, that he had some involvement somehow. There's no reason for him to tell the lies he's told if he didn't have involvement.
He definitely seems capable too, has the wherewithal to do it.
Right. And look, I went to that trailer, and I asked him point blank, because I was in denial. He was a great friend of mine. And I asked him, I said, are you really sleeping with Sarah? And he said, yes, I love her. And I'm like, why are you doing this, Steve? Why?
Yeah.
Did he give you an answer of any kind?
He said, I love her. I just love her, and I will fight for her job. I'm not getting rid of her. He just went on, and it was so disheartening because I knew Nan very well, and I thought Steve was a quality guy, but he pulled the wool over my eyes. And it was just that day. I have never spoken to him since, and I hope I only get to see him in a dark room by myself for about 5 minutes, and everything else will be taken care of. Because what he did to a lot of people in our fire department, and especially the Nan, I wish him the worst possible ending of his life that anybody could have.
Was this after she passed away that he said that to you? About loving?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, because
Jesus.
I went there because me and him were really close. And I didn't know. I've heard rumors of it. I guess I was in denial, but when I needed to know. So I went to his trailer and knocked on his door. He answered the door, and we sat down, and that's when I asked him point blank. And that's what he told me. He said, I love her. I'm going to fight for her. I'm not going, she's not going away.
How soon after this? When was this? Like month-wise? Do you remember?
It had to be... So July, probably the middle of August. It was about a month later because he had just put that fifth wheel that he had bought back on the property.
Now, Renee, this is Randy up north with Kim. Do you happen to know if you've talked to any of the guys that were on the scene the day of? That camper he had there, did anybody notice or look? Was that hooked to the house for electricity?
I was actually there the day of the fire, and I don't remember, and I haven't spoken to anybody specifically about it.
Okay, I'm just curious of that because I know when we were there Monday, I think somebody was staying in that camper because the jacks were down, the awning was out, there was stuff in it. It was not how you store a camper. It was how you use a camper.
Well, if you notice in the Crime Watch Daily show, that camper is on the other side of the house. So if it wasn't lived in, it was put in front of the house so it could burn with everything else and he could get all of his insurance money. And for some reason, the sheriff's office doesn't find that to be alarming. But who put the camper right on top of their house? And if you look at the aerial view of Crime Watch Daily, that camper is exactly where a camper would be when you're not using it. It's out in the field, away from the house.
I get what you're saying there, and the thing that clues me off is the fact it was set up like you'd be using it. The other thing is, not to contradict what you just said, but if you look at the photos that he's been flipping through on the screen, you will find one where the camper is setting where that red Jeep is on the current photo, and it's not set up. It's almost like it was parked there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Wow.
As much as I don't want to defend Steve on that, it's just the fact there is a photo out there with it just parked there.
Right. Oh, I mean, I'm sure he was living in it. I'm sure my sister kicked him out and it had enough, especially if she found out about the affair. But I'm just saying, if he wasn't living in it, he staged it right there so it could catch on fire so he can get insurance money for it.
Now, the picture on there now does show a camper parked over on the far end of the property, but I don't believe that is the same camper.
Yeah, I don't either because it's smaller. It's shorter.
Yeah, which makes me wonder if that's even Steve and Nanette's camper in this current photo, or if that's somebody they know parking it there.
Yeah, I think I remember them saying it was somebody else's that was parked there. I don't think that is theirs.
Oh, where's his camper in this
picture? It was
Wayne's,
his brother Wayne's camper.
Yeah.
Well, where's his camper in this picture then? Like, where is it?
It's not there.
The camper in the picture you're showing now.
Yeah, but where is his?
End, but I don't see their.
Yeah, that's weird.
I don't see their camper in here, but I don't know if they had their camper at this point. Because this is back when Nanette was driving the red Jeep, not the red Mercedes.
Okay, so if we go back in time on Google Earth, let me get rid of the overlay.
You had a picture up there at one time that showed the camper.
Yeah, right here.
When the house was standing. Yeah,
yeah.
Right there.
See, that's actually April 6, 2016, and I think I have one that even later. See, now it's February. It doesn't have the little awning sticking out, but this one here has the like the.
That's the one I remember.
Okay. Yeah.
So what's the date on this picture? Can you tell?
Well, this one's February. This one right here is February 8th, 2017. This one is April 6th, 2016. So about 10 months earlier.
Okay.
Well, I'm wondering if the sheriff is on this call because he just texted me and he said, "I will confirm."
Confirm what?
Sheriff
Well, what
just
isn't he
texted you or
calling?
one of his
What isn't he
employees?
calling right now?
He just texted me and said, "I will confirm."
Confirm what?
The sheriff himself? Or one
Yeah.
of his employees?
Really? You're
No,
kidding.
it's him. It's him. Yeah.
Well,
confirm what?
He's if it's actual sheriff.
I just texted him.
If it's the actual
Yeah,
sheriff,
it's the actual
I hope he
sheriff.
is listening. I hope he is listening because he's told me 2 or 3 lies when he said he'd call me back and he's never followed up. So, Randy, if you're listening, this is Randy Gretkin. Please give me a call and give me the answers you said you were gonna.
So what is what is he saying he's going to confirm? I don't get what does that mean? Did you say
I don't
something?
know. I haven't texted him anything recently. I mean, I texted him.
You mentioned earlier, Wendy, you were mentioning something you asked for confirmation on from the show, the flight home or something like that.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Justin's flight.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, get to work.
Yeah. Well, let's get the sheriff on next time then. You guys can ask him some
get him on
questions.
now.
That would be wonderful. I would
Yeah.
love to have him get on because maybe we could get some questions answered.
Yeah.
You know, like I said earlier, I don't want to throw any law enforcement under the bus, but he's the one that has said he'd do things and won't follow through and call back. So I'd love to get him on, and maybe he'll answer the questions, and we could all be satisfied with their work. But at this point, I'm very disappointed and unsatisfied with the job they're doing.
I think it's a good idea. Who was that? Was that Lori that you just got contacted? Maybe you can set something up where we can all come on.
No, that was Wendy.
Wendy?
That was Wendy.
Okay, Wendy. All right. Oh, okay. That was weird. I thought
I
that
just
was...
sent him the number.
Oh, Jesus, really? To the show? Oh, man. I mean, I get it, but...
No, I sent him your personal cell phone number.
Oh, man, that's even worse. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
And your address. They're all looped in on this.
How about my social security number? Did you send him that? Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I don't think he's going to call in right now.
Flash the number one more time.
I don't think he's going to call in right now. But seriously, why don't you just do it where you set it up and say, hey, why don't you call in and you can answer questions people might have.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, like, real shows do, right? They invite the sheriff to come on and talk.
Yeah, they do, actually. I don't think he's going to want to call him at
They
the
like
end
to
of
hear
the...
from law enforcement.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't mind at all. You know, you could ask the questions about the surveillance footage. Why can't people see it? What's on there that you don't want people to see? That's so part of the investigation. Well, if it's her and you believe it's her, then that is the only worthiness of the video. So what else are you looking at in the video that you're not willing to let people see? Maybe something like that. Wow, is he just texting back and forth really quick? Jesus, listen to that. It's like bzz, bzz, bzz. Or maybe that's a blender. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, he's kind of been known to be an alcoholic, so maybe he is making a couple of margaritas.
Well, he's definitely not calling now.
Chime in on that.
Yeah, well,
he is known to be an alcoholic, so.
Well, he's not calling in now.
He should.
Yeah, what's he going to
Wendy,
say?
can you get him to call now?
I'm going to work on him this week. See if he'll call in. He
Yeah.
has been texting me. Like, I text him about 4 times a week, just random stuff all the time. And I told him eventually he'll either block me or he'll start talking to me. And he has been texting me back quite a bit lately. So, I don't know.
Well, you must have the magic touch with him because he don't call me back when he says he's gonna.
Yeah.
It's called harassment.
Well,
I
well, here's the thing. My wife. My wife's coming home from
cell phone
work.
number. You just need to be persistent. Like, I text him.
I do have his cell phone number.
Regularly.
I do have his cell phone number, and he told me call him anytime when he gave it to me. And I've left him messages, and he never calls me back. Just a month ago on the conference call, I think you were involved in that, Wendy. He told me he would get those answers and call me back soon. Well, I don't know his definition of soon, but apparently it ain't within a month.
Right. And look, I'm the same thing. I'm still on November 6th. I called him and asked him the discrepancy between Justin flying and Justin driving. That's very important. I don't think we should be eliminating Justin out of the equation. There was no love lost between my sister. And that video of supposedly my sister with an endearment, dance with Justin, my sister did not look endearment at all. She looked awkward. She looked like she was uncomfortable, and she didn't look happy.
That looked weird.
But this is the thing. I decided when I finally got his cell phone number, when I finally got to meet with him in person, he didn't defer me to Cox, that I was going to diligently, and I'm serious, I send that man a text message 3 times a week. I don't care if it's a Dateline story about something that looks similar to my sister's story. I don't care if it's just what I'm thinking in my head and it's off the wall. I've been sending that man text messages, and I don't talk to any of the detectives. And I was like, eventually, he's either going to block me, he's going to call me and tell me to stop harassing him or something. But in the last 2 weeks, before he would never respond. All it would show was that he read my text message. Well, when I met with him on November 5th, he told me that he forwards all my text messages and that he does get my text messages, but he forwards them to all of his men. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fine, but I don't want to talk to your men because I think all of your men are liars. I think they're all treating this as a suicide, and I don't have any faith in any of your detectives. And so I want to talk to you because you're the one in charge. I'm like, Daniel Buckner has told all of us that he is the low man on the totem pole, and he does what he said, what he's told to do. Now, why would I want to talk to him when he's told what he's supposed to do, and he is the low man on the totem pole, when you're the one that makes the final decision? So whoever moves this train is who I want to talk to. So I'm going to continue to text message you. And so finally, in the last 2 weeks, he responds to everything I send him.
Well, it sounds like you moved the train.
And he's never called me. And he's never called me before, ever.
Wow. Well, get him on the show. Let's do it. But hey, listen to this. Listen to this. My wife's coming home. Wait, hold on. I got to get this out.
You need to text him.
Yeah, get him on the
texting
show.
Randy,
Get him on the show.
Basis.
But listen, my wife's coming home. She's been at work all day. I got to get her something to eat here in a minute. I took that other call that kept me on. I was all smooth about it. I was going to get off the show, but then I took that other call, and then we got into actually some really epic stuff. So I'm glad I did that. But why don't you guys see if you can get the sheriff to call in, and if not, maybe we can sort of. I mean, it seems like there's so much more to discuss. Like it just never really ends. You guys are good at just kind of going back and forth and really good information. All right.
Well, there's a lot of
we can go on anytime.
There's a lot more we could discuss.
Yeah.
We'll be happy to get to it at a later date when we all have more time again.
Oh yeah, no, I have no problem. Just basically Gina and I think I have Kim in a Facebook chat both together, and so you guys can just let me know when you want to do it again. But let's see if we can get that sheriff on here, and then you guys all can come back on too. But you'll have to each talk individually. I can see it going, hey, and you're all just yelling at the guy at the same time. I mean, you guys are pretty good at not doing that, but I would want.
No,
want
we're
to do
very
that.
prim and proper.
I would want to do that, though. You see what I'm saying? But all right. Well, listen, I really appreciate you guys coming on tonight, and hopefully we can get justice. But at least what we're doing right now is keeping this out in the public. All right?
Yes.
So I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. We'll talk to you
you.
guys
Bye.
next time. All right, talk to you guys later. All right, bye.
Bye.
I guess that's how you can. I didn't know how to hang up on all of them, so I just closed Skype. But wow, that was so cool. It was so interesting. Got a lot of more clarity, more information of the story. That conversation at the end there was pretty epic. That's incredible that the sheriff that we were mentioning actually literally texted, I think it was Wendy, while we were live. That's awesome. And yes, I got some chicken I want to eat. All right. And I want to say thank you to Super Chats, so Richard Canick, Audra Audra Blankenship, Darrow, Hood Robin, Ada, Chickie's mom, Tammy Stewart, and then also on the Stream Labs, Amanda and Rachel. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I might try to come on later, I don't know, 9:30ish or something. There's some other cases out there that I neglected. All right? So that's all I got for you guys this evening. And until next time, be safe out there.